In 1992, a doctor named Charles Arnson presented a concept where vaccines can be transported into living beings by consuming transgenic plants. This is known as edible vaccine. When this vaccine is swallowed, it stimulates two immune systems known as mucosal and systemic, which is something injected vaccines fail to do. They do a terrible job in stimulating mucosal immune responses. The outer tough wall of the plant cells protects them against attack by enzymes, and the degradation occurs in the intestine, inside a group of small lymphoid follicles known as Peyer's patches, which are rich in an antibody known as immunoglobulin A. The antigens of edible vaccines penetrate the follicles and enter the lymphoid structure, then they meet M cell or microfold cell. This cell acts as a bus that transports the antigen to macrophages and B cell. T cells are like the key of the bus. When it's inserted into the lock, the engine starts. T cells stimulate B cells to release antibodies. How is it made? One way of making these edible vaccines is to use a bacterium called Agrobacterium tumefaciens to insert the genetic code of antigens into the plant cell. Antigens are proteins that trigger a target immune response in the recipient. The plasmid of Agrobacterium tumefaciens is cut using a restriction enzyme, and a piece of antigen gene and antibody resistance gene is glued to the plasmid of Agrobacterium tumefaciens using ligase enzyme. The leaf is cut and placed in an antibiotic medium with the modified Agrobacterium tumefaciens bacterium to kill off cells that lack antigens. The cells then multiply and produce a clump called callus. The callus will sprout shoots and roots. This will be kept in a soil. Within 3 months it will grow into a plant that carries antigenic vaccine vegetables. But, how is this better than a normal vaccine? There are enormous advantages, but if I have to give a short talk on it, here it is. 1. They are cheap. For example, a single dose of hepatitis B vaccine would cost approximately 0.43 cents. 2. Plants are easily available locally. I mean, just look at your window. Plants are everywhere except if you're sandwiched by buildings around you. Anyway, yeah, if they can be grown locally, the vaccines can be easily transported. 3. It reduces risk of contamination. For plants can be regenerated, so the growers do not have to spend money on buying seeds. Last but not the least, they are needle-free. It's a honey into ears for people with trypanophobia, also known as fear of injection. Does it actually work? Once, Dr. Charles Arnson and his colleagues genetically modified a tobacco plant's gene from the hepatitis B virus by synthesizing protein. When it was injected into mice, the same immune response as the virus itself was noticed. But the real catch is, does it work on humans? In 1997, people who consumed a piece of raw potato containing a benign segment of the E. coli toxin, both mucosal and systemic immune responses were observed. Later, 2 of the 3 volunteers who Hilary Kaprowski of Thomas Jefferson University fed genetically engineered lettuce with a hepatitis B antigen exhibited a good systemic response. What other plants can be used to make these antigens? Potatoes are ideal. They can be stored for a long period without any need of a cold environment, but they have to be heated prior to eating, which can denature proteins. Bananas can be eaten raw, but the trees need years to grow up, and take about a year to bear fruit. Tomatoes grow faster, and they are readily available, but they may rapidly spoil. Despite popular belief, not all antigen is always destroyed when cooking potatoes, so it's possible that potatoes are more useful practically than most of us thought. In addition, foods like lettuce, carrots, peanuts, rice, wheat, corn and soybeans are being considered. What is stopping us from using edible vaccines and challenges that arise? The amount of vaccine made by plants is low, and in some cases when plants grow poorly they produce higher amounts of antigen than it's required, and another concern is that vacancy should trigger immune response and not the otherwise, suppressing them. Ingestion of those proteins can cause the body to shut its response. I highly encourage you to explore this topic in depth on your own, if you want to. Let's see what the future has in store for us.